Yep, guys, it was time to get rid of the winter beard. So I'm going to be looking a little bit different in this video today. So today what we're going to talk about is our trees. Now I've seen online that a lot of you people are concerned that your trees didn't make it. I'm going to give you a couple ways that you can figure out whether your trees are still alive, whether they're dead, you know, if you need to pull them out, especially if you need to trim them, or any of those other things. You know, we're just going to go through, you know, what we need to do to our trees. As you can see behind me, right here in front of the chicken coop. And unfortunately, my video about my chickens didn't do so well last week, so we're going to save the other video that I've made for another time, where I talk about my chicken coop. Now, unless you guys want to see it, throw it down in the comments, let me know. You know, like I said, from what I saw, it's not a very popular video, so, you know, I'm not going to continue to make it if it's not what you guys want to see. So, if you do want to see it, then let me know. Comment section is always the best way. And as always, you know, in my About page for the channel, there is an email. It says it's for business purposes only, but you guys can email me anytime. If you're a subscriber to this channel, your family, email me please. The second thing, again, there are links down in the description for a couple of companies that we have teamed up with here. One of them is 99% of it is seed. If you're having trouble finding seed, these guys have a lot of seeds in stock. And also, they have a couple of tools and seed starting trays and so forth. The second link is 90% of their website is for seed starting and for pots and so forth like that. So if that's something you're interested in, link down in the description. You know, if you do click on that, if you do buy something, I will receive a commission, but, you know, it's not something I'm worried about. I did it more for availability for you guys to be able to find this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you around. I'm going to show you the different trees we have and how we're going to know if they're alive or not. On this side of the yard, we have 2 peach trees. I've got a Meyer lemon tree. I've got a orange tree, and then in the front yard, I've got a fig tree. So we're going to go around and I'm going to make sure that they're all alive. I'm going to see if I need to trim them or if I just need to let them be and come back to that. All right? So we'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys, so our first tree is this poor little bitty peach tree. Now, I know that it doesn't look like that it probably made it. But the easiest way to tell with any tree as to whether or not it made it is you're going to come down here, you're going to take your thumbnail, and you're going to scrape it. Now if you see right there, I'm trying to get the camera to focus on it. Come on. Come on. Focus, focus. There we go. So as you can see, that's green. Now that I can see green on that, then I know for sure that that little tree made it. Now, all of these little guys, you know, all these limbs, they may have not made it, and I can deal with that. But at least I know that this tree, this harvester peach, is going to produce flowers and more than likely buds, because this tree never came out of dormancy. As you can see, there's not any green on it. There never was any green on it. It never came out of dormancy. It was still just as you see it here before we had that bag freeze last week. Oh, and just for another thing, last week it was 17 degrees. This week I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. Go figure. Texas weather. Now this guy here, there is no doubt that it made it. A lot of these were leaves and buds that were already here before the freeze. Unfortunately, it's such a large You know, it's a pretty tall tree. It's a good 9-10 foot tall and a good 5-6 foot wide, and it's very difficult to cover. And of course we lost the foliage and we lost a lot of the buds that were already on here, but we have new pretty green buds coming out, new leaves. So I have no doubt that this thing is going to make it. You know, I have no doubt that we're going to put out new buds and new leaves. It just is going to have a little bit later start than what it started with to begin with. Now, just for prettying purposes, you know, you can pull these off. You know, I'm personally not going to, just because I don't want to damage the tree any further than what it already is. I mean, it just went through, you know, freezing temps with somewhere near zero. And it was a short period of time after it had already come out of dormancy. So, you know, I don't want to put it through any more undue stress. It's going to grow. These leaves are eventually going to just fall off by themselves. So why put the tree through any more stress of doing that manually or with some sort of a tool or whatnot? We'll just let it be and it'll do it itself. All right, guys, and then we got my Meyer lemon tree. Now, if you follow me on Facebook, this right here, this little bitty tree, is one that had well over 100 lemons on it this year. We had a huge harvest of lemons that came out of this little bitty tree. And I have trimmed it up a little bit this year because I had some low-lying limbs down here that were pretty much scraping the ground, and it was actually causing some of the lemons to actually rest on the ground and deal with some rot issues and some mold issues and things like that. So right before this freeze, which knowing now I should have waited, I went in and trimmed up a lot of the bottom, and anything that was kind of growing down at this angle or was growing straight out and down, I went ahead and trimmed off. Now, as you can see, almost every one of these leaves, and even the buds that were here, are destroyed. But again, we can do the same thing that we did over there on the peach tree. We can come in here with our nail and we can scrape, and look at that, guys, right there we have, put my hand behind it so it'll focus, we have green. So again, if there is green all the way out here, then I know that stuff down there and anything below it is good, because there is no doubt whenever you see green wood underneath that everything's made it, you're good. So we don't have to worry about our Meyer lemon tree. Now I have a good idea that this is our orange tree. I really don't know what the variety of this is, but it puts out about hand-sized oranges. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a good harvest of oranges off of this. They tend to go dry. And I've had a couple of reasons that I've come across as to why that happens, but really and truly, I don't have the faintest idea why we can't get good oranges off of this tree. I know that we've gotten good oranges in the past, but it's been quite a few years before we've gotten a good eatable orange off of this. But with this one, we can see we've got good green leaf here. You know, these little offshoots here, which would have been affected by that frost more than anything, and they are still green underneath. And even you can go out here to something like this and kind of scrape it with your thumbnail, and boom, we have green all the way out here. So even though this poor tree looks so sad with all its brown leaves and so forth, we know that we're going to have a tree when we're done. It's not dead. It's hurt. It's stressed. But, you know, today is February 26th. There's still plenty of time for this citrus tree, the orange tree and the Meyer lemon tree to come back strong and to, have a good year this year. I would suspect that with our Meyer lemon tree here, that it's probably going to spend most of its year recovering from the damage. It's probably going to spend most of its year either on its roots or replacing all the greenery that it lost. Because, during the wintertime, we usually have some browning and some leaf loss just during a regular winter. But this was especially hard because of the ice load that we had on it. Every one of these leaves was covered with a sheet of ice, and it sat on there for a couple of days, actually, which really damaged all the cells of the leaves. So this tree here may end up spending most of its time trying to replenish the leaves to help it continue to grow, because through our leaves of our tree, the leaves are what makes the energy. That's the power plant of that tree. And if you take all the leaves away, then it has no energy. So with this one, it'll probably spend this year. We may not get any lemons off of it, which, it is what it is. We're not going to stress over that. We're not going to worry about that. We might actually get some lemons off of this. I'm going to try a couple of things, but guys, if you guys are, orange aficionados and you guys know how to make an orange tree produce, then throw something down in the comments, email me. I want to know some tips and tricks. I've found some things, but I'm not 100% sure as to whether or not that's going to fix it, and I want to make sure that I'm doing things right. Guys, I have this channel, but I'm not the best guy in the world on everything. Yes, I know gardens, yes, I know trees, but I don't know everything about every tree. I don't know everything about every garden plant. So if you guys have some tips or tricks to help this tree produce better, things like that, I would suggest that they be all organic because we don't use chemical fertilizers and pesticides and so forth. But, throw them in the comments, email me. I would greatly appreciate that. All right, guys, so now we're on to our last little bitty tree. And this is our fig tree. Now, the good news is it pretty much looked like this before the freeze happened. So we don't have the fact of that it came out of dormancy and then it, went right back in, having damage done to it, and then, having all these green leaves that it's lost and so forth. So it hasn't come out of dormancy yet. So again, we're going to come way out here on the end. I don't know if you guys can see my hand or not. And we're going to give it a little scrape. I have to use another finger. Yep. And see, look at that, guys. We got green. We got green. So that's way out on the tip. That it looks kind of brownish. So I know that this tree made it completely. Our pretty large aloe made it. I know if you guys are on Facebook with me that you saw pictures of this because of all the pups that we've got this year and so forth and how wonderful and big it is. Well, this one was the only thing that we actually took inside, and I actually stuck it into our little greenhouse that if you saw in the 2 videos ago, we actually just put it right in the center of it and we closed it up, and as you can see, even the tips are all perfectly fine. It's all nice and perky now that I've put it back outside. We did have some leaf burn, but all in all, she did pretty well. All right, guys, so of course this doesn't apply to everybody. We're here in 7A, and our threat of frost is just about over with. We've got another week or so, and then we have like a 90% chance that we're not going to get another frost. So these trees that I have in my yard, because I've checked them and I've made sure that all the way out towards the end of the branches that they are still green and pretty, that I don't have to trim. if you do go around and do this test where you're scraping with your thumb or whatever it may be to check, start out from the tip of whatever branch that you're looking at, preferably one on the outward most of the tree, which is the one that's going to be affected the most. And if you find brown and you don't find green, then start working your way in. And when you find green and you don't have a threat of frost anymore, then that's where you need to trim from. Preferably at a node. Another tree branch is, or where you have some other leaf or something like that that is still alive. But you want to work your way in, and because you don't want to take anything off more than what has to come off. You know, these plants have gone through enough stress and so forth just by being, you know, having this freeze happen. So we don't want to induce any more stress by cutting off more than what we need to. And again, with most fruit trees, especially if you bought them from a big box store, are a grafted tree. Usually about 6 inches up from the soil surface when you buy that tree, there's going to be a knot. It's the best way I can explain it. It'll be a part that's swelled out. And what that is where they took the root of one tree, which is usually, if you're dealing with citrus, it's usually a sour orange or something to that effect, a very non-edible. I mean, you can still eat them, but they're not very good. They're very bitter and sour. Where they took the root of that tree and they grafted on whatever it is, be it an orange or a lemon or a lime or something like that. And so the reason that the root of that one tree is chosen is because it is very disease tolerant or drought tolerant or some other positive attributing factor that a grower likes. Unfortunately, the fruit is not that great, so they graft on or take another branch from a tree that they like the fruit of, and they graft that onto the top of that tree. Everything below that knot is going to be a tree that you don't want to grow. So any sprouts or things like that, or if you cut it back below that knot, you're going to get whatever the rootstock was, which is probably not a desirable tree. So if you're coming back and you get to where you've got green, but it's going to be right at or right below that knot, just pull the tree out. It's not going to be viable. And usually after a hard freeze is where you'll start seeing branches and so forth start trying to come out of that area below that knot, and you want to trim any of those off because those are just like a sucker on a tomato. They're just going to take energy and they're not going to produce anything that's going to be viable for you. So just a couple of tips. If you're living somewhere up in 8A, 8B, 7, 6, 5, 4, you know, all the way down to 1, trimming or doing any kind of maintenance to your trees is not going to be something you're going to want to do right now, because if you're looking at another freeze, you don't want to remove the already damaged leaves because those are almost going to act like an insulation. Because once you start trimming or removing those leaves and it gets a warm up, your tree is going to start throwing out buds and leaves. And the worst thing that you can do is like what we dealt with the peach tree. It already started to bloom and flower, and we already had leaves on it, and then it goes to this hard freeze and it kind of sets it back. You know, whatever energy that it put into making those leaves and those blooms is gone. It's all for nothing. So you want to just leave those trees alone and let them go through their dormant period, and don't try and do anything that's going to bring them out sooner. Surprisingly enough, trees have been around for thousands and thousands of years. They know what they're doing. Every once in a while, the weather kind of fools them because of patterns that happen. But most times, they're going to stay dormant, and they're going to be dormant until it's ready for them to start producing. So we just want to keep that in mind whenever we're looking at our trees. Yes, they look sad. Yes, their leaves are droopy and they're not looking pretty, but that foliage that is drooping and so forth is going to help that tree to make it through winter. You start taking it off and then you've got issues. I want to encourage you to, if you lose a tree, don't give up. You know, it happens sometimes, especially with trees that you just planted. Because once you have a tree that's established, that orange and that citrus tree have been there for 10 plus years. They're going to survive. They're not going to have an issue. But if you just planted a tree last summer, then you're probably going to have an issue with it, that it may die off because it hasn't been established very well. So anyway, I just want to encourage you, if you have to dig up a tree because it died, you know, don't give up. It happens sometimes. You know, it's just one of those things. So guys, as always, I want to continue to encourage you to pray over your family, pray over your garden, pray over whatever God has given you to be shepherd over in your life, whether it be your trees or your plants or your animals or whatever it may be. Be thankful for those things. Thank Him for them, and have a great day.